Live from the KFOX 14 studios in El Paso and Las Cruces. You're watching KFOX 14 News at 5.
Doña Ana County Sheriff's deputies arrest 7 people, including 4 county employees, in an alleged check cashing scheme. We'll have more on that story in a few minutes. But first, police released new information on a deadly stabbing that happened overnight in northeast El Paso. Good evening. I'm John Purvis.
I'm Erica Castillo. First on Fox this evening. Joshua Zuber from KFOX 14 News at 5 has been at the scene talking to people in the area about this stabbing this afternoon. He joins us live from the murder scene.
We're called here to the scene of the Hawaiian Royal Motel on Dyer. That's near Hondo Pass. That was just around midnight in regards to a possible killing. The scene now clear, you can see, but there's still some blood on the ground in several places, including a nearby apartment complex. When officers arrived on scene, they found Stephen Joseph Brio and Rudy Herdado with stab wounds. Both were taken to the hospital, and Brio later died from his injuries. Police say that Herdado is released from the hospital and will be booked into the El Paso County Jail for 1 count of murder. Today we talked with one neighbor who says she called 911 to help one of these guys. She didn't quite know who he was, but he reminded her of her son.
He came through here and then he went right there to my apartment, and I was sitting over there and he was bleeding really bad. So I just got him and I was trying to help him.
Herdado's bond has been set at $500,000 here, and police say that more arrests could come in this murder investigation. Reporting live in northeast El Paso, Joshua Zuber, KFOX 14 News at 5.
An elderly woman is hospitalized after she's hit by a car in central El Paso. It happened at around noon today at the intersection of Frankfort and Cobia near Austin High School. El Paso police say the woman suffered a serious leg injury. Investigators are still trying to determine who was at fault.
The Doña Ana County Sheriff's Office arrests 7 people, including 4 county employees, in an alleged check cashing scheme. It shows that Doña Ana County Sheriff's investigator Ken Roberts, who is leading a small group of... Okay, let's just get straight to the package and get the information on what happened in Doña Ana County.
I'm standing outside the county clerk's office where earlier this morning 3 of the 7 people arrested were taken into custody. Take a look at this video. It shows Doña Ana County Sheriff's investigator Ken Roberts leading a small group of law enforcement officials into the county clerk's office. This happened around 8 o'clock this morning. A few minutes later, 4 more law enforcement officers enter. Then the county manager, Julia Brown. 3 employees were arrested and then taken out the back door to avoid media. They were Rena Rodriguez, Nadia Martinez, and Amelia Gomez. On Friday, the Sheriff's Department arrested Maria Siniceros and 3 others, including her husband, Francisco Siniceros, and their daughter, Denise Siniceros. Siniceros is charged with 113 counts of identity theft, forgery, fraud, and conspiracy. Another man who was crossing from Juarez to bring the fake checks was also arrested on Friday. His name is Armando Gutierrez Torres, but his mugshot was not available. All the arrests stem from a 2.5-week investigation. Court documents show that Siniceros would pay other employees $20 every time they notarized a document that gave others the power to cash refund checks with stolen identities. Siniceros was busted with 3 checks worth about $12,000. Officials say the charges for the other employees will range from fraud to conspiracy to theft.
We had obtained information that there were specific employees within the clerk's office that had committed various criminal acts, and the incident this morning basically involved our members of our patrol division and our criminal investigations division detaining personnel over there, ultimately interviewing them, and then ultimately taking them into custody.
Because this is an ongoing investigation, there's still a lot of information that investigators can't reveal. However, the county tells me the county clerk, Lynn Ellens, and the deputy county clerk, Scott Crawling, are not the targets of the investigation. They say management is cooperating, and the clerk's office, as you can see behind me, is open for business. Reporting from our exclusive Las Cruces Bureau, Patrick Hayes, KFOX 14, News at 5.
Crime Stoppers of El Paso needs your help capturing 4 men who have outstanding warrants for family violence assault. Charlie Padilla-Hines, Carlos Ramirez, Anthony Ramirez, and Ismael Perez are all charged with assault and family violence. Perez is also accused of interfering with an emergency call and unlawful restraint. So if you know anything about where to find these men, please call Crime Stoppers at 566-TIPS.
Congress has allowed some parts of the Patriot The law provides tools for the U.S. government to investigate terrorism, but at least for now, the National Security Agency has to stop collecting telephone metadata from millions of Americans. KFOX 14 reporter Emily Schmidt tells us what else has changed.
The motion is agreed to.
It's not often the Senate meets on Sunday, but there were lawmakers trying to beat a midnight deadline when key Patriot Act provisions would expire. In the end, the clock won out.
We should not have allowed them to expire. We've known for 4 years this day was coming.
The Senate's failure to act introduces unnecessary risk to the country and to our citizens.
Bulk data collection ended at 7:44 Washington time Sunday night, keeping the National Security Agency from accessing any data from telecommunications companies. It's a system that had been in place since President Bush signed the Patriot Act in 2006. Attorney General Loretta Lynch said last week that losing the data collection would be a serious lapse in national security. Critics say the program has only taken away civil liberties.
We are not collecting the information of spies. We are not collecting the information of terrorists. We are collecting all American citizens' records all of the time.
In a new CNN ORC poll, a majority of Americans, 61%, say Congress should renew its law collecting telephone data. That's even as Americans are split on whether it would increase the risk of terrorism in the United States. The Senate is expected to restore the expiring systems later this week. Until it does, telephone metadata remains locked up and off limits. In Washington, Emily Schmidt, KFOX 14 News at 5.
A Senate vote on the USA Freedom Act later this week will include provisions that would have telephone companies hold the metadata telephone information and release it only when the government got a specific warrant to seize data from a specific individual. Also, law enforcement could still get wiretaps for terror suspects, but it would have to get a warrant for each device. There would be no roaming wiretaps. Screeners with the Transportation Security Administration fail an undercover investigation aimed at checking their ability to identify explosives or weapons. One government official says so-called red teams with the Department of Homeland Security posed as passengers trying to pass through security with explosives or weapons. The official confirmed TSA officers failed 67 out of 70 tests to get the items through. Another government official says the DHS Inspector General's report is not scheduled to be issued until later this summer and is still being written.
Former U.S. House Speaker Dennis Hastert will be arraigned this week following an indictment that alleges he agreed to pay $3.5 million in hush money. As we first told you last week, Hastert was indicted on one count of evading bank regulations by withdrawing nearly $1 million in increments of less than $10,000 each to skirt reporting requirements. He also is charged with lying to the FBI. Each count carries a maximum 5 years prison term, but the indictment doesn't say what Hastert was allegedly trying to hide or to whom he allegedly intended to pay the money. Meantime, Illinois lawmakers end their regular session with no budget deal on the table. Republican Governor Bruce Rauner blames Democrats in charge of the legislature for the stalemate. He also blames state Senate and House Democratic leaders of wanting big government in order to help what he called their lucrative careers outside the State House.
They are for the political class. They are not for the middle class.
You're saying they're using their public office to make money.
They have very lucrative careers as politicians. That is true.
Both the state Senate and House Democratic leaders are attorneys who specialize in real estate law. Democrats accuse Rauner of being stubborn and not willing to compromise on the budget. Lawmakers will hold special summer sessions starting this week to work on a deal.
In your election watch.
I'm Lindsey Graham, and I'm running for President of the United States.
Today, the Republican South Carolina senator added his name to the list of presidential candidates. Senator Lindsey Graham made the announcement in his hometown of Central South Carolina. He was first elected to the Senate in 2002 after serving 8 years in the House. Graham is noted for his track record on foreign policy, and he hopes that can help lead him to victory in a wide-open Republican race. A recent poll of likely GOP voters showed, though, Graham getting just 1% support.
The worst of the rain has come and gone in Dallas, but the city is still struggling with flooding. There were dozens of swift water rescues over the weekend, and a dog shelter was forced to evacuate due to rising water. As soon as the shelter's director received a reverse 911 message from the city of Dallas warning of potential flooding, she loaded up 80 dogs. The water is not expected to rise much further, but with the overflow from a nearby lake still spilling into the Trinity River, the water's not expected to drop very fast either.
It's going down, but very, very slowly. From the information that we have, and depending on how the water is spreading around, we expect the waters to be at a level where it will impact rush hour traffic in the mornings.
The biggest concern emergency officials have is drivers ignoring the barricades, which is why extra officers are being assigned to patrol the area. Emergency officials warn just because not a drop of rain fell on Sunday doesn't mean the flooding risk is gone. In 24 minutes, we'll tell you how many counties in Texas have now been declared disaster areas.
When we arrived on the scene, things just didn't look exactly like they needed to be.
Not doing enough, the argument that led to a mother's final moments.
A gruesome murder, how people in Northern California are remembering a 6-year-old girl taken too soon.
Soon more than